Welcome to another installment of the APB recap. My right arm hurts really bad right now because I actually had a motorcycle accident, but regardless, let's get to it anyway. Remake 4 is an absolutely fantastic game, and I absolutely love it. But there are some people who isn't a fan of it, and especially to a lot of its changes. This Steam review, for example, is not happy that he can't see Ashley's panties anymore, or how Ashley reacts to Leon seeing her panties. Which is a perfectly valid complaint if you ask me. So this person got clowned on the internet because at the end of the day, he comes off as a massive pervert who wants to see Ashley's panties. And unfortunately, there's no way you cannot come off as not a clown when you are asking for the panties of fictional characters. Just because you have a valid complaint doesn't mean that people will take your valid complaint seriously. And this person over here is one of those people that don't take your complaints very seriously. I worked in Japan. I worked on games that had content like this. And by content like this, we mean fan service. Content like this never needed to be in any of these games. And you know what? That's true. They are never needed to be there in any of these games. In fact, putting them in the games constitute as a potential risk where you can offend people and cut you off in the business because of that, like prudish game journalists. But it isn't the game journalists that game companies need to worry about, it's their business partners who might cut ties with them for perverted things. Maybe there are voice actors or mocap artists that don't like it when they have to do perverted things in this already very controversy-ridden industry where people just don't want to talk about sexual harassment and all of that stuff. I guess they just don't want to be associated with perverted and raunchy content like this. So it's understandable why a lot of the major parts in the industry don't want to, engage in those sorts of fan servicey content like that. It sucks as somebody who likes and enjoys fan service, but I can understand why they have to go into those decisions. That being said, if your goal is to titillate, there are better ways than juvenile abuse of the male gaze. I mean, what do you expect something titillating is supposed to do? Also, seriously? The male gaze? I'm just saying, people who talked about the male gaze tend to be really horny themselves and a massive hypocrite, which this person has proven to be a couple of times based on his likes. This is why I hated the 2B design. That's your subjective philosophical point of view. It encourages this BS. Yes, what this guy said is overly dramatic, and that, in my opinion, is the biggest issue that a lot of us fan service enjoyers have. We loathe normies so much that we can only communicate in a way that only we can get. And unfortunately, unironically trying to convince the normies that a video game character's freaking panties are important to the game is a very big task. But this is not BS at all. He has a valid overall point, and that is fan service content is getting extremely lacking in the mainstream AAA games, where it used to be prominent back then. Now granted, I don't buy Remake 4 to see Ashley's panties. I want a great game. And I did get a great game. Remake 4 is an absolutely fantastic game. But still, we are seeing less and less sexuality in mainstream video games, and that is a problem. I want to see more sexuality, and I'm advocating for both genders, not just sexy women, but also sexy men. And once again, Capcom gives us the ability to mod the game to however you like. You can get more than just Ashley's panties. That being said, apparently Capcom requests some modders from Nexus to take down some of Ashley's nude mods, which, by the way, is a really stupid move, Capcom, because nude mods are like regenerators. You take one down, and they're gonna keep coming back. Except, unlike regenerators, people being horny won't stop coming back as they don't have weak points to shoot with the thermal scope. Not shoot with a thermal scope, more like to look at with a thermal scope and then shoot with the rifles in the game. And even if publishers try to take them down, we won't stop posting them. We tried complaining to them, they didn't listen. We take matters to our own hands by modding the games. They don't like it. A lot of Japanese game publishers genuinely don't know how the internet works, especially Nintendo. Once it's on the internet, it will be forever on the internet. People will have copies of it online, and people will make more of them online, and you can't stop them from reproducing it. Not just the game mods, mind you, but the porn as well. There are loads and loads of porn of Remake Ashley and Remake Ada and just any of the remake characters, frankly speaking. And there is no way you can stop the reproduction of all of those because, unfortunately, people on the internet are just way too horny for that. I'm not saying this to be prudish. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. If you are in with that stuff, awesome, go for it. But do it with consent. On whose consent? In games, mediating media of agency or consent is very difficult. Yeah, maybe because the consent that you're referring to seems like it's pointing to the fictional characters of the games that we are playing. Like, how are we going to ask their consent? Resident Evil is a little more complicating in this regard, specifically the remakes of the Resident Evil games, because a lot of the likenesses of the characters are actually based on their mocap actors, which, granted, looks amazing. In fact, I think Capcom is the only developer right now that managed to translate the real-life likenesses of the actors themselves into the video games and still make them look gorgeous. But that's the thing, Capcom. This is why you shouldn't put people's real-life likenesses into video games. People are gonna make all sorts of raunchy content with them, and you can't just stop them forever. Just because you can make the distinction doesn't mean everyone else can. Yeah, if everyone else cannot make the distinction between a fictional character's consent and a real person's consent, I think those people should be at an insane asylum. One of the issues that were discussed in the last couple of weeks was the lawsuit towards Internet Archive, which will pretty much destroy all sorts of things that were archived in that website. The reason is because apparently Internet Archive infringes on copyright, and because it infringes on copyright, it is technically speaking piracy. Or at least, according to this person. Good! Everyone commenting on this thread is as axiomatic that piracy is fine! Yes. Yes. Yes!
Your appabendyt, being a pirate is a wretched thing. Do what you want cause a pirate is free. You are a pirate.
This has been said many times, but the best way to beat piracy is to make things more accessible. But the problem is a lot of publishers don't make a lot of things accessible. They rather just bury them to be forgotten. They bury them so much that the only way for us to get them is to acquire them through piracy. I'm sorry, but works like books, movies, and video games should not just be thrown into the garbage just because the publisher refuses to publish them. That, in my opinion, is censorship. That is denying history, and I don't want that. Publishers have no rights. They do have rights, they just exercise them in the dumbest of ways. We criticize how they exercise them, and they refuse to listen. You wonder why we turn to piracy. They don't even bother to defend their claims. Copyright theft is wrong. Information wants to be paid for to the people who do the work to create and spread it. That's great and all, but what if those information are very important, very crucial, and yet the creators don't want to spread it around? That's why we resort to piracy. You don't give us access to those things, we won't pay you for those things. Plain and simple. Can't buy Nintendo 3DS games now, too bad. Nintendo just removes it from the stores, you can't buy them no more. So at this point, what can we do to get all of these 3DS games? We can only pirate them. We can only hack the 3DS and get the pirated copies of these games. There's no other way. Seriously, companies like Nintendo is the living embodiment to why piracy and why emulation and archiving is absolutely necessary in this digital age that we are living in. And I think people who advocate for the removal of these archive goods and books and movies and all of that stuff, I think they're just shilling for the corporations, and I think they're shilling for the legality of the system that benefits them rather than benefiting the society as a whole, because, you know, society would greatly benefit for the existence of all of these books, movies, video games, and all of that. But hey, can't have that because my law book. I like to work out and I want to work out, but the problem is recently I had a motorcycle accident and my right arm is still in pain. Lifting feels really great even after the delayed muscle soreness. Some people disagree though and think that lifting is apparently a waste of time. Lifting is to exercise as masturbation is to sex. I do both, and I have no idea what that means. We suspect that if it were studied, whoa, wait a second. If it were studied, are you talking about lifting? Are you talking about if lifting was studied? Because I can tell you this, I self-taught myself how to work out and look for tips around, look around on YouTube, find the best, most optimal workout, the best possible moves in order to build my muscles and everything like that. And there are loads and loads of papers and researches out there about lifting and working out. Loads. You clearly haven't researched jack squat. We suspect that if it were studied, we would see that lifting is deeply unhealthy. No, it is not unhealthy. It is actually very healthy. There are so many studies that proves that. I mean, oh my god, you could just literally Google them. There literally exists. Lifting is a form of exercise. It strengthens your muscles, your biceps, your triceps, your chest, your back, a lot of body parts. What are you talking about? We bet people freak out when weightlifting is attacked because of a deep insecurity among those who live, trademark, as to whether it's a productive use of time or just the male version of the fat acceptance movement. Whoa, 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 whoa. There's a lot of really bigoted undertones there. You're telling me that the fat acceptance movement is a female thing. Not only that, but you are comparing the fat acceptance movement to men doing weightlifting. You are comparing people coming to terms with the fact that they are fat with people who actually work their hard ass off improving their body. You are suggesting that women would rather just cope with their feelings rather than deal with the problems head on. I'll leave you be the judge of that. Yes, lifting is harder to keep up the fat acceptance, but being ripped does not make it a productive use of time. That's your subjective philosophical point of view. Some people like to get ripped because they like to have good looks on themselves. Who are you to judge? It is also hard to masturbate 10 times a day or to become a guild leader in World of Warcraft. Okay, first of all, you don't masturbate 10 times a day. No man does that. We usually do more than 20. Second, becoming a guild leader in World of Warcraft is easy. The hard part is gathering people up to join your guild. The OP then cites an article about how mortality rate is higher among bodybuilders. Well, duh. Bodybuilders use steroids and all sorts of meds to make sure that they got the optimal body that they wanted to win the bodybuilding competition. But most people who weight lifts do not use meds like steroids. This is the second time people fundamentally misunderstood body enhancing meds. I think it just shows that most people either need to work out or need to learn more about working out. Here's another installment of the Socialist Party making the most ridiculous arguments. Socialism will never work. Who's gonna do all the dirty jobs? Then it shows robots. Apparently, according to the Socialist Party, robots will do the dirty job. I mean, granted, mopping the floor, sweeping the floor, washing the dishes without a dishwasher are pretty tedious works. But I would trust my own hands over, say, a Roomba. Especially when I bought a new broom recently. Who builds and repairs the robots, mate? That's a good question. Who does that? Workers who really enjoyed that sort of work. Okay, let's get one thing straight here, Socialist Party. Just because workers who love repairing robots exist doesn't mean that they will do them for free. And it also doesn't mean that there will be enough workers that love repairing robots to fit in the demands of the robots and robot maintenances that people have. The question about the person who loves doing work is not their existence. It's the quantity to fit in society's demands, which at this moment is not much for, robots and automatons and all that. But in the future, it'll be a lot. And to a large extent in the future, robots, automaton, AI, etc. will build and repair other robots. Yeah, who's gonna repair the AI repair robots? Seriously, what happens when everyone wants to be an artist or a poet? Who will make the food or housing? That's also a very good question. How are you gonna answer this, Socialist Party? Seriously? You think that if everyone was free to do whatever work they like, absolutely no one in the world would want to produce tasty food or build homes for people to live in? No, there will be people who want to produce tasty food or build homes for people to live in. The question isn't their existence. The question is if there are enough of them to meet people's demands. If there aren't enough of them, then guess what? You are screwed. You need to do much more work with very little people that are also unpaid. The Socialist Party, are you mad? Absolutely no one likes Denuvo, the DRM for PC games that prevent people from pirating games day one. This time, they only cemented their hate even further by posting garbage like this. What dangers game emulation brings to the gaming industry? There's none. Absolutely no danger. Emulation is not an easy thing for most people to do. As someone who teaches computers for work, I can vouch on the fact that there are loads of people who still don't know how to use a file explorer. So if you think that your bottom line is gonna be threatened by the world of emulation, you thought wrong. Emulation gives society more net benefits than they do drawbacks. And the only people who feel the drawback of emulations are the big corporations who want to squeeze more money than they already got. How can you, a developer, be impacted? You will never be impacted by emulation. You will be, however, impacted by piracy. Not by much, but you will be. Like emulation, piracy is inaccessible to people who are either not computer literate or just too lazy to download and install. As long as you have your games easily accessible to people on digital distribution platforms, all you need to worry about is the marketing. How can you prevent it from negatively affecting your business? Well, if you're the kind of company that uses Denuvo for your DRM, whatever losses that you will take, you kinda deserve it. They got this free ebook that you can download, but I'd rather just tell these guys to shove it up their ass. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to 2016. What's digital blackface, and why is it wrong when white people use it? Digital blackface is this glitch from the PC version of The Last of Us. As for why it's wrong when white people use it, it's kind of self-explanatory. Digital blackface is a practice where white people co-opt online expressions of black imagery, slang, catchphrases, or culture to convey comic relief or express emotions. Okay, Ryder, considering the fact that the majority of the English-speaking side of the internet are filled with white people, you are unintentionally encouraging white people to suppress black people from the cultural discourse. You are making their presence less prominent by telling them to stop posting black people as reaction gifs. This article is encouraging racism. Many white people chose as images of black people when it comes to expressing exaggerated emotion on social media, a burden that black people didn't ask for. Wow. That would imply that black people are burdened by the mere existence of white people posting gifs that feature them. Yeah, so this article is implying that black people are fragile creatures that should be protected at all costs, including from the monstrous thought that white people uses gifs and emojis.
Give the fucking guy some water. He's black. He's been through a lot.
I understand that exposing children towards LGBT stuff can be a really touchy subject for a lot of people. But as a parent, it's better if you acknowledge the existence of these people and teach your children how to react appropriately to their existence, rather than just robbing them out of their enjoyment and fun. My nephew, 8 and 10, are big fans of superhero cartoons, and I'm a huge fan of DC Marvel myself. We were watching Young Justice Outsiders. Okay, your first mistake is to watch Young Justice Outsiders with your 8 and 10-year-old nephews, because Young Justice is not really meant for kids. It's meant for teenagers above the age of 13. And second mistake is watching Young Justice Outsiders in the first place. Season 1 was really good, Season 2 wasn't great, and Outsiders is neither an upgrade nor a downgrade. Imagine my shock when I saw 2 kids watching Aqualad kiss a fellow man. And
I missed the part where that's my problem.
what are kids learning from this? Please! That gay people exist, and that people who have the same sex are capable of loving each other. That is an undeniable reality. Stop shielding your kids from reality. Are you mad? They were disappointed and sad when I had to change it to another cartoon. They begged me to put it back and started crying, but I couldn't let them continue watching it. This right here, ladies and gentlemen, is why your kids will resent you in the future, and why they will have parental issues. Instead of you educating your kids about the existence of gay people and why you think they are a problem, you just shield them away from the reality of the situation. That's not gonna convince them. That's only gonna make them more curious, and it will lead them into roads that you don't want them to take. And this is assuming that I agree with you, which I don't. You bigot! And that is all for the recap today, guys. Thank you so much for joining in the recap. If you like this video, you can go ahead and click the like button and subscribe for more. Thank you so much for all the people who donated and helped this channel for what it is. You guys are fantastic. If you want to see your names among these awesome people, then check out the links down below. Just $1 a month, and you've added so much value to this channel. Thank you so much, and I'll see you all next time.